Welcome everyone, thanks for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The face-off over BBC documentary on Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Gujarat Riots continues, with certain sections making it clear that they will go ahead and screen the episode despite objections raised by India. Several Congress and left-backed groups, especially in university campuses, are on a war path, adamant to screen the documentary, which has been rubbished as propaganda to push discredited narratives by the Indian government. While there is no ban on the BBC or the film in India, only circulating its links has been blocked and its digital access curbed. The attempt to screen the series is a political opposition on a matter that has been already settled in India. So why is this being done if not to harp on the same charges that have been disproved for political gains? Over the last 9 years, the opposition has thrown everything but the kitchen sink at Narendra Modi. Nothing has stuck, especially allegations over Gujarat riots or even charges of corruption. Cases on powers of the ED and even demonetization have not resulted in any great ammunition for the opposition. Now, as 2024 closes in, is this not an attempt to once again use foreign powers for domestic politics? Does it also not show utter bankruptcy of the opposition because they're relying on something they've tried to use for 20 years and failed? In fact, isn't this documentary actually an attempt to take away from the Supreme Court's judgment on the 2002 riots case, which indicted those who were accusing then Gujarat Chief Minister of lying? We'll take those questions to our guest joining us in just a bit. But first up, let me break down where all this screening of the BBC documentary episode 1 has taken place. Hyderabad University, it happened on Saturday itself, the day the block by the Indian government came into effect. But today, at Kannur University and the Trivandrum Law College, this documentary has been screened. JNU students in the national capital, or the students' union body at least, is planning to screen it, we are being told, despite objections from the administration. We don't know whether that will eventually take place or not. But this isn't now just about student union or student bodies. The Congress has registered, if I can call it that, a protest screening of sorts on the streets of Trivandrum. The BJP actually protested against it, and the ABVP, which is the BJP's student wing, has also said that there is a colonial hangover of the opposition in India, and that is why, the screenings are taking place. This is in fact a screening, another screening that is taking place for students, it seems, in Kerala. A lot of this is actually coming out from Kerala. Why? We'll have to debate, but this isn't the first time something like this is playing out. Often since 2014, we've seen, in the face of the public not quite responding to domestic charges, opposition has tried to use foreign voices to make their point, often to no avail. Let me break those down. So one, of course, is this example. The BBC is releasing a documentary on Gujarat riots, and it almost paints Narendra Modi as the villain, with no proof, mind you. Nothing new has come out. The Congress leader, Rahul Gandhi, backs it. Others are screening it, as I said. Earlier, you would remember, New York Times reported that Indian government bought the Pegasus spy tool and used it allegedly to illegally spy on Indians. Opposition parties raised it in Parliament several times. In fact, it stalled Parliament on this issue. Eventually, remember, the SC-picked SIT said that they didn't find evidence of Pegasus on the devices that were submitted to them for probe at least. Moving on, French journal Mediapart had published a report on the Rafale deal. It talked about kickbacks. Congress has used not just this but several other things to mount further pressure on the government, because remember, for a long time it mounted corruption charges on the Narendra Modi-led government on the Rafale deal. Eventually, you would remember, the Supreme Court dismissed those charges as well. Also, New York Times also reported that there were 42 lakh people who died in India during COVID. Opposition parties used this a lot, and a lot of these data, which had no real proof but, conjectures by so-called experts in foreign media, to attack the government over the COVID death toll. Global media also talked about the Balakot airstrikes and said that no one was killed, although the Indian government also didn't say it. But a lot of the Congress leaders and even other parties questioned the government over this strike, who died, whether you uprooted trees or not. You would remember just yesterday, Digvijay Singh of the Congress party pretty much did it all over again. Today, he's been snubbed by Rahul Gandhi. The larger point is, and that's the big debate that is coming up, isn't the opposition using foreign powers, foreign hand, foreign voices to fight its domestic battles? And is this a ploy that has failed and is bound to fail again?
डॉक्यूमेंट्री जो है कहीं भी लीगली जो है बतौर लीगल कानूनी रूप से वो बैन नहीं है भारत में, तो उसे देखना कोई गुनाह नहीं है।
बीजेपी नेताओं को बात देखने You can ban, you can suppress the press, you can use CBI, ED, all this stuff. But the truth is the truth. It has a nasty habit of coming out.
ये गंभीर विषय है।
Part 1 of the 2-part BBC series was found to be malicious propaganda. It lacked in objectivity, it lacked credibility. It questioned the authority of the Indian justice system. It questioned the credibility of the Supreme Court of India.
I want to go across to the guest joining us. Guru Prakash Paswan is the BJP national spokesperson. Vivek Bansal of the Congress Party is joining us, in fact. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow, Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. Dr. Makran R. Paranjpe, Professor JNU and political commentator. Vasik is writer and commentator based in the UK. Mohammad Tausif Rahman is political analyst, also joining us. I want to begin with you, Dr. Paranjpe. How appalling is it? I've dealt with the issue of the government, blocking access to the BBC documentary, and I'll come to the issue of the politics being played on the documentary today in India, with several groups and politically affiliated groups screening it. But how appalling is it that this documentary, which is obviously made and released post the Supreme Court final order on Gujarat riots, makes no mention of it, completely skirts the fact that the Indian Apex Court has pointed out to a conspiracy against then Gujarat Chief Minister, makes no mention of the main protagonists who have serious charges against them and are facing those FIRs, and presents everything else as if that is the only thing that matters. That in itself should be enough for anybody to see through this propaganda.
Absolutely, Shivani, but as long as you're allowed to see that propaganda for what it is, and not just have to take the government's word for it. The problem is that we all know that there is a conspiracy against government and against Narendra Modi in particular in the foreign media. Over and over and over again, we have seen this in reports, in the slanted stories, in documentaries. In fact, this isn't a documentary, as you said. Most likely it's not. I haven't seen it, but from the little that I've derived from, secondary sources, it's really a hatchet job. It's really a targeted attack. And as we approach the 2024 general elections, you can be sure that more and more such negative propaganda is going to come to the surface. But the question really in my mind is, how do you counter this? Is it through banning? Of course, this is not even a ban.
It isn't. The government maintains, and I spoke to Kanchan Gupta, senior advisor of the INB ministry, he insists that this is not a ban, this is blocking the circulation and the digital access to this episode, the first episode at least.
That's what is going to make it ineffective. In fact, it's going to, in places like JNU, someone will have downloaded a copy, they'll show it in rooms, they may have a public screening, there'll be a dharna. If the Vice-Chancellor disagrees to screen it, which has already happened, the registrar has put out a notice, and going to give traction to something that is, shouldn't be paid so much attention to. So I want to come back to the question of whether blocking access is the best way to counter the propaganda, because we've seen in the past that whenever there's been slanted reporting against Modi, his support has grown.
Actually, it helps him. You're right. And I debated exactly this yesterday. I don't want to delve too much of that on that today because my focus is a little bit different. But I did make exactly that point yesterday. One, how effective can a blocking be? And secondly, They've tried this against Narendra Modi in the past. It hasn't really worked. So then why worry? Let people watch it and, judge for themselves how bad it is.
To add one more thing, I'm a citizen of this country. I have every right to seize this kind of material. Why should the government block my access? This is paternalism. This is somebody else deciding what I can watch or not. Now, I've read the emergency powers that are invoked in the Act, and are you trying to tell me that this documentary poses a threat to the integrity and sovereignty of my country?
No, I think that's not what they said. I'll quote it because I did interview Kanchan Gupta on this, so I can at least bring you the government view on why they blocked it. I asked him exactly this question. He said that, this is they found it to be, they had an inter-ministerial approach to it, MHA, MEA, INB, IT ministry. One second, Dr. Paranjpe, just 1 second. Just for the benefit of my viewers, since you bring it up, let me say it. That it was found to be malicious propaganda, lacking objectivity, credibility. It questioned the authority of the Indian Supreme Court, could inflame passions and divisions between communities.
Fair enough. You can put it with a warning. You know, and what will you do if tomorrow Lamont does it? Somebody else does it. This is endless. The free press can't be muzzled and throttled like this. And I can tell you, people are going to find ways to watch it in any case.
Absolutely.
But I want to say one more last thing. I have no brief for the BBC. Why are they not doing I believe there was a huge conspiracy to burn the compartment of Kar Sevaks. Who is behind that conspiracy? Who paid for it? Why aren't they doing,
No, but they've brushed it aside. From what I have also heard from those watching this episode, they've kind of left it as an open question. Was it really a conspiracy? Not a conspiracy? That's what I'm saying. It's so appalling that this is a complete rehash of what we've heard for 20 years.
I want to say one more thing. Why don't they do a documentary on the abduction, conversion, and forcible marriages of Hindu girls in Sindh or in other parts of Pakistan? Why is Pakistan never seen as a human rights violator in BBC documentaries, anti-Hindu? Never. It's only India. And this playing out this minority-majority card of the BBC, I think is nefarious.
Absolutely.
How can I say this? 1 minute, Shivani, I just want to end. How can I say it with all power at my command if I can't see this film? If I saw it, then I'm going to make all these points and more. But if I'm going to be blocked access to it, I don't think it's a good idea in the long run.
Fair enough. The question that arises is, and I'll take that to our political representatives as well, Guru Prakash, the problem that arises is that the fact that the BBC has an agenda, doesn't have an agenda is one question. The question that arises is, why is it people in India, and as I've enumerated these examples, keep using these agencies somehow to browbeat Indians into accepting what they've rejected? That is the mindset which I find even more appalling.
Exactly, Shivani, we need to understand a couple of things. In front of me, I have a news piece from 2014. It is the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper in 2014 said a very prophetic thing. They said today, 18th May 2014, may well go down in history as the day when Britain finally left India. 2 days after that, there is another news which says 21st century belongs to India. You have to understand a couple of things. 2023, it's a very important and a very significant year. We are hosting G20. There is Shanghai Cooperation Organization happening. International Year of Millets is happening. Certainly, there are certain forces which are inimical to this. They are inside the country, they are outside the country. They want to derail the entire conversation. They are not appreciating the fact that India's stature has now grown. Our interventions in the new global order has been very phenomenal. So this is very certain. But another thing which you have to understand, when issues like this comes to the fore, similar incident happened in 1970. Indira Gandhi government banned the documentary. There was absolutely no debate. There was absolutely no controversy around it. In fact, there was a unanimous political consensus about it. You can attack the BJP, you can attack the government, but whenever it's the question of the image of the country, it has to be beyond all doubt. We have the political statement in front of us. Mahua Moitra, Derek O'Brien, several Congress leaders, they have questioned this. So this is something which is very clear in our mind. You can attack the BJP, but whenever there's a question of reputation of India, at least on a global scale or an international scale, it must be avoided.
Yeah.
And the Congress
We
leaders,
invited the
time
Congress-
and again, only yesterday we saw.
Yeah. We invited the Congress and the
Correct.
TMC both on the show. One of their representatives is here, but not in an official capacity. But, you know, one of the Congress leaders, who's A.K. Antony's son, Anil Antony, did speak to me, and I'll play that conversation later. He said very openly that you can have differences with the BJP, but do not support a British-sponsored agency like the BJP to do what the colonial powers have always tried to do in India. Now, that's the kind of political bipartisanship we need. You can have differences, you can thrash it out. For 20 years you have, for heaven's sake. Why use this BBC documentary to make the same points and then not really do it openly? They're not coming on the panel and discussing it. But using it here and there, their youth wing will do it, their student wing will do it. I don't understand this. Guru Prakash, please finish. I'll bring in the Congress representative.
No, Shivani, you were right. And Anil is a young leader of the Congress party.
From Kerala,
He
by
is
the
son
way.
of a
Sorry,
senior
I'm
Congress
interrupting you
leader,
again. From
former-
Kerala, by the way,
Correct,
where most
from
of these
Kerala.
screenings are happening.
Correct. And he's a very thoughtful leader. He comes from an illustrious political family. His father, former Defense Minister of India, Mr. A.K. Antony, he realizes this. On the one hand, you say Samvidhan khatre mein hai. On the other hand, you are with the similar forces. Are you against the Supreme Court of India that has exonerated all the charges? Or you with the people who are against the idea of India, against the idea of constitution? You have to make your stand sufficiently clear today and now.
Okay, Congress representative Mr. Bansal is on the show. Mr. Bansal, simple question is, why is, for example, Rahul Gandhi saying that, you know, truth has a habit of coming out? What is the truth that has come out in this BBC documentary which has not been said, debated, thrashed and even legally fought over? Ultimately, for us, the truth is what the Supreme Court said. The Congress needs to get its messaging right because it is seen as defying even what the Supreme Court said after nearly 20 years of a legal fight. Mr. Bansal? Okay, seems like we've lost that line with him. But let me take that to Tausif also. Tausif, is the BBC above the apex court of the country?
No, ma'am, not at all. I don't think so that we are competing with Supreme Court or we want to go against the Supreme Court. But the thing is that you have to accept India and the people of India should know about Gujarat Riot. Gujarat Riot was not a myth. It was the biggest massacre happened
Never tried
with
to
everyone.
project it as
now,
a
you have
myth.
to understand, you have to, see ma'am, don't interrupt me. You have to understand the sentiments of the people who have lost their life. Those pregnant women, those people who have lost their mother, father, brother, sister. I'm not saying that we have to support that documentary which is coming from the British. Because we Indians, our Honorable Prime Minister of India has a very good relation with the British Prime Minister as well. Now, if it's something against Narendra Modi, now we are climbing up the hill and we are saying that Jack and Jill went up the hill and now the relation is very bad with British. Why? Because they have released some documentary
Nobody
which
has
is going
said that.
against the narrative of Narendra Modi. Now, this is very harsh. All the panelists, my intellectual panelists sitting here, they have not lost any life. God forbid, hona bhi nahi chahiye. But you need to ask those people who are staying in Gujarat. आग लगती है, धुआं उठता है.
But Tausif, the question is not that. The question is not that you're trying to make a documentary on what happened in Gujarat. First of all, I don't know why you are saying that we need to talk about it as if we haven't talked about it for 20 years. Nobody denies what happened in Gujarat. Nobody has ever tried to call it a myth. Unlike, for example, the genocide and the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir. Nobody has ever tried to do that.
Shivani, I am not.
But
Shivani, I am not
once
bothered
again, the
about Rahul
objection
Gandhi,
to this BBC
Narendra
documentary
Modi,
is only that
who is making a
against
propaganda.
what the Supreme
I
Court
am
of India
bothered
has
about those
said,
lives.
what the agencies in India have said. It tried to use a discredited foreign secretary of UK of the past to suggest that somehow Narendra Modi is guilty. On the basis of what? That's the pure objection, nothing else.
If you are sitting on a national television and you want to support the Honorable Prime Minister of India, you do so. You have all the right.
No, I am
but
supporting what my Supreme Court said. No, I'm sorry, don't try this with me. Tausif, don't try this with me.
No. India should know what actually happened.
Yes, so nobody has denied what has happened.
If Britain is
and
raising some
BBC
kind of
need
documentary,
not tell us what happened. That's my central point.
People
when
are
I object to the
people
fact.
are
No, one
more-
second,
no, no,
Tausif.
people are
Tausif,
more
one
worried about
second.
Narendra Modi's
Tausif,
image.
one second.
I don't care.
No, one second.
I don't care about
try to
Narendra
act
Modi's
smart
image.
with me. I am not defending a political leader in
No,
question
I'm not
here.
acting smart with anyone, ma'am.
Absolutely,
No,
you
no,
are.
I'm not
I am
acting
not
smart.
defending a
But
political
the thing
leader
is
in
that
question. What I
the
am saying
panelists
is
want to
that the
save Narendra
BBC
Modi's
and
back.
its
They are backing
interpretation of what
Narendra Modi.
happened in Gujarat, Jack Straw
No,
and
what
his
is the
alleged
problem if
report
it's
of what
getting
happened in
released?
Gujarat is not above what Indian Supreme Court has said. That's all I'm saying.
It's okay.
Then-
you know what happened in India? If tomorrow someone gets accused, the media starts the media trial
What
and
are
they
you
already
even
make him a
talking
rapist
about?
or a murderer. But then after
So
10
what?
years,
Good.
that
No,
honest
one second,
guy
one
comes
second.
out from the
Did
Supreme
Narendra
Court and
Modi
they
not
say,
undergo a
"इन्होंने
media
कभी कुछ
trial?
नहीं किया."
No, did Narendra Modi not undergo a media trial?
Yes, it
if you are
happened.
objecting,
Why
then
not?
object to his media trial
And
too.
why not? Constitution
So now why
is
not?
equal for everyone.
You like
Narendra
media
Modi has
trials
no horns in his
when
head.
it is against those you don't like. Accept it.
Narendra Modi is not special at all. Yes, I respect him as my Prime Minister of India, but he has no extra powers. If
So
he
what
is
are you
so clear
talking about?
And everything is so clear, what is the problem of watching this documentary?
No, that's not my
What is
question.
the
My
problem?
question is why
Where are
must
we
this
lacking behind?
documentary be used for politics today? Haven't we done politics on exactly this for 20 years? What's new in
I am not
this?
bothered about Congress or any leader who wants to make it a propaganda. I am bothered that Indians should know about Gujarat Riot. What happened? What happened with the Babri Masjid?
And you want
What
to know
happened in
this
Gujarat,
via BBC
Ahmedabad,
and their lens?
everywhere.
You
We
don't
should know
see that
this.
there is a clear colonial
No, why don't you
mischievous
release
pattern?
it? Why don't CNN and other channels make a documentary on Gujarat Riot
Everybody has
with
talked
a neutral
about it.
thinking?
There are enough Indian documentaries on it.
Nope. It's still very much in one angle that the minorities
Absolutely
were at fault.
not. I don't know
Will you
what
believe
world
that?
you live in. Absolutely
Will you
not.
believe that?
Let Abhijit,
Will you agree
one
that?
second, let Abhijit Iyer come in here as well. My central point, Abhijit, is that there is a failed attempt to keep using either reports in foreign media or, let's say, content produced outside of India. Whether the BBC has an agenda or not, I'm not getting into that. But there is an attempt, and there is a series of such actions which fail. Ultimately, politically, you have to fight Narendra Modi, on issues here, not continuing to rehash what somebody else outside of India says. India doesn't have that appetite anymore. The Indian people don't seem to have that appetite anymore to be told by BBC or anybody else what they should think about their leader.
So, Shivani, see, I think the problem out here is market forces. I think you've seen how, I know we have foreign panelists here, so I'm not being disrespectful, but you've seen how, honestly clueless foreigners come to India and get taken for a ride by the auto driver or the taxi driver who will charge them 10,000 rupees for a 1,000 rupee ride, right? So what happens is everybody in India, of course, knows exactly how to bargain with a taxi or an auto. The problem here is you have all these BBC, Washington Post, New York Times who come here on their 3-year postings or stints or whatever. And, they're your typical guys who are looking for the news story, the meaningful story, etc., etc. And of course, this is a horse that has been flogged to death. No Indian wants to listen to this anymore. Nobody is really interested anymore. And so you get, I'm sorry to use this word, but bakra, Balika Bakra come from abroad who's willing to spend money telling your story without realizing that there's no market for it here. But clearly there's a market for it abroad and tells you the exact same thing, nothing new in it, that has been said over the last 20 years. This is like, honestly, Abhijit Mitra coming on Shivani Gupta's show and saying the earth is round. Is it going to make headlines? No. But they've convinced them it will. And these guys have gone back and made their documentary. Now, if you watch Jack Straw's interview, the only new piece of information here is the UK FCO's internal investigation in which Jack Straw is cited. Now, if you watch Jack Straw's interview, what he says is very clear. There was the BBC, the internal report doesn't have any proof.
Yeah.
They spoke to people who claimed Modi did XYZ.
Yeah,
allegations. Of course, those people aren't named. And we all know where these people hang out. They used to hang out at Khan Market. Now they've shifted to Lodi Colony Market, Merchant Market, and the Italian Cultural Center, where I see them every second or third day. There's nothing you can do about it. So, it's this club of, this circus of one, talking about one, talking to the only one, same thing over and over again. I honestly don't know what the big deal about this is, because nothing actually holds up to scrutiny. And unfortunately, we're also going off. I don't know who this government's media managers are, but they're honestly atrocious. Be it Rafale, be it farmers' protest, be it anything. I think there's some serious sackings needed in the PMO, which they're not doing. But leave that aside. The problem here keeps coming down to the fact, somebody's got a colonial mindset. Oh my God, somebody's got this agenda against us. This is not a comeback. I mean, you take the documentary on its facts itself. You even take the cited FCO report. There is nothing there.
No, the question that arises is, you're absolutely right. Abhijit, I don't disagree with you. There has to be smarter ways to discredit such reporting. The question though I ask is, and I asked it at the very beginning, you look at the fact that they've spoken to the same old people, rehashing the same old allegations, but there is no mention of the fact that the court has indicted the very same people who were raising these allegations. They are facing inquiry of their own. How lopsided can you be?
Obviously. So, there's a very famous Broadway musical called Martin Guerre, where somebody pretends to be something. He was married to somebody else in his hometown. He went off on a crusade and to the Middle East and came back to Europe. And he invented a whole new life for himself. So you see, all these people are completely discredited at home. But like I said, these bakaras from abroad don't know that they're discredited. So they're like, oh my God, great intellectual, major
are
intellectual.
Are they so naive?
This guy...
No, Abhijit, are they so naive that they don't know?
Yes. I've actually attended a friend's wedding in Italy claiming I was a Maharaja from India. And they would start bowing to me and calling me Your Majesty.
But those may be ordinary foreigners. But these are, BBC journalists we're talking about. Are they that dumb or naive?
Yeah, they are. They actually are. They've got a very... Look, these people aren't India experts.
We are talking about...
They are generic...
They're not talking about the justice given to those Gujarat people. They haven't got the justice yet. Who is to be blamed in today's date? We don't know that.
You knocked on the doors, the victims knocked on the doors of the Indian courts.
Ma'am, it's
very
harsh.
Supreme Court. I don't want to repeat.
We are talking about being intellectual.
What
but
Supreme
we are not
Court
talking
said
about those Gujarati
on one of those victims. Please don't make me quote that.
Those who have suffered pain.
The entire Indian judicial system has looked into this. This is precisely the question that I'm raising. You can disagree with what happened as far as the eventual judgment is concerned. You cannot sit here and say that they were not given the opportunity. They were given the opportunity for 16, 17 long years. Don't make me repeat what the court said about some of those petitions.
Yet to come, madam. There is no truth yet.
That is not related to what the BBC documentary and the politics over it is. You please fight that battle separately. Knock on the doors of the Supreme Court.
The British government will guarantee
that.
No,
please, no. I'm sorry, that old tribe, I'm not going to allow. Vasik has not spoken. Vasik, I want to bring you as someone who looks at some of these issues. You're based in the UK. You've seen some of these, what harm some of these reports tend to do sometimes in India, what global media writes. Like Abhijit is saying, several of them believe the global media just doesn't understand India to begin with first. Secondly, a large section believes that they're patently motivated against India and specifically against Narendra Modi. How do you view this BBC documentary, especially when I've said categorically that it doesn't mention new facts and the Supreme Court orders and judgments in this case?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It doesn't actually bring in new facts, and it's not going to sway the decision of the Supreme Court, which has obviously exonerated Narendra Modi. So I think your panelist who seems to think that relying on the BBC to provide information about the Gujarat riots is a bit of an embarrassing claim. And I'll explain that why. For example, over here in the UK, the BBC is currently going through an existential crisis itself. The corporation itself received 97,000 complaints only last year to December 2022, of which thousands involved anti-conservative views being expressed by the presenters or the interviews. And just 4 of those accounted for over 1,200 complaints. So when we look at this into context, it's probably no wonder that they're now attacking Prime Minister Modi. And the reason why is because the Telegraph newspaper here revealed in a report, found that the broadcaster had a left-wing agenda in its history and drama programming. And I'm therefore not surprised that this left-wing or the left wing at least in Bharat are now salivating over this BBC documentary, hoping that it can resurrect old news and old wounds as a way to perhaps help them in terms of the upcoming elections. So, the BBC, I don't think in this case should be relied upon in terms of giving an impartial account of the Gujarat riots, particularly as they're not actually presenting anything new.
Absolutely. I think that kind of completely nails it. I do thank all of our guests for joining us because